The FBI just subpoenaed the records from the most embarrassing election audit in American history, an audit that tested ballots for bamboo because they thought China shipped them in, an audit that found Trump actually lost by more than we thought. So why does the Trump administration want those records now? We're going to get into that, but first, I have to catch you up on a war, a cyber attack on a Michigan company, and a law that could decide who gets to vote in November. Stick around. This one's packed. Welcome to Make It Make Sense. I'm Grant Hermes. It's March 12th, 2026. Let's go. Okay, so real quick. Since Tuesday's episode, the war in Iran has gone completely sideways. There are 4 things you need to know. Number 1, a new Pentagon report says the U.S. struck a girls' school on the first day of the war. The strike killed 175 people, most of them children. The Defense Intelligence Agency was working off of outdated target data, according to this report, and the school was on a strike list instead of the military base nearby. When Trump was asked about it, he pretended he hadn't even heard about the report.
Commander-in-Chief, to use
for what?
For the strike on the school in Iran. A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it.
The president was heading to a rally in Kentucky that day. There is no version of that morning where he hadn't been briefed. None. Number 2, Iran-linked hackers hit Stryker, the massive Michigan-based medical device company. 200,000 devices compromised, 50 terabytes of data wiped. To put that in terms you might be able to picture, imagine erasing 1.5 million photos off your phone, except instead of it being brunch pics, it's MRI scans for cancer patients and brain scans for stroke victims. And this might just be the opening move for Iran. I wrote about how the U.S. cyber defense are at risk right now after the administration spent the last year hollowing them out on the SUBSTACK. You can check that out in the show notes. Number 3, Iran has been mining the Strait of Hormuz, and not mining for gold, dropping anti-ship explosives in the narrow waterway where 20% of the world's oil passes through. Israel has bombed around 30 Iranian oil refineries, so Iran doesn't really care what happens to the major shipping lane right now. Even if the fighting stopped today, clearing those mines would take months. And number 4, senators got a 2-hour classified briefing this week, and what they heard was grim. Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut came out and said publicly there are no goals to destroy Iran's nuclear program, no plan for regime change, no plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or even how to do that. The plan, as best as anyone could tell, is just to bomb Iranian missiles and drone plants and ships, wait for them to rebuild, and repeat. Forever. Oh, and there's some new polling. This is the least popular war at its start since World War II. Only 41% of Americans support it, and that number will only go down, especially if boots hit the ground. Okay, now the election stuff. Earlier this week, the head of Arizona's state senate announced the FBI sent a subpoena to Maricopa County, the state's largest county, home of Phoenix, for records from the 2020 election audit. Here's why that's wild. The audit was led by a company called Cyber Ninjas. Already not a great start. These were the most spectacularly incompetent people ever handed a government contract. Top-shelf idiots. Let me run you through this. They seized voting machines without proper training. They used the wrong colored pens, which could have spoiled valid ballots. They claimed Sharpie ink would bleed through paper and void ballots stacked on top. That's not how the paper works. They said Sharpie ink might be too reflective and could confuse the voting machines, which are really just glorified office scanners. They left the building doors unlocked with private voter data inside where they were working. And then there's my personal favorite. They tested ballots for bamboo because they believed tens of thousands of them had been shipped in from China. Setting aside that theory is racist, China has been in a decade-long paper shortage and imports most of its paper from other countries, so they don't really have the paper to spare, and it's also just so stupid. What did this audit find after all of that? Well, Biden got 360 more votes than the original count, which means Trump lost worse than anyone thought, and there was zero evidence of fraud. The company then collapsed. Cyber Ninjas closed entirely because of the fallout. Trump's own DOJ, his own cybersecurity agency, and his own attorney general in 2020 all said no fraud in Maricopa County. But Trump still says the election was rigged. Here's what he said yesterday.
Election records in that state.
Well, they probably thought the election was rigged, right?
It wasn't rigged, though.
Oh, really? How do you know?
Your own Attorney General in 2020 said that there was not measurable voter fraud to change the outcome of the election.
Think it was rigged? I think it was rigged.
There's no sir. Where's the evidence for that?
It wasn't rigged. You're a rock report.
Where's the evidence?
That reporter is Liz Landers from PBS. She's not rotten. She is one of the best in the business right now. And the president is still pushing a claim that lost in court more than 60 times. So the real question is, what is the FBI doing with this data? Election officials think it's a backdoor to get sensitive voter data that Arizona has refused to hand over to the DOJ. About half of the states in the country have refused this, Democrats and Republican states alike, and many are currently in a lawsuit over it. Here's why that matters. The DOJ's stated reason for wanting voter rolls is to verify accuracy, but they could do that with the publicly available data. The real fear is that they want to identify recently naturalized citizens and immigrants and either block them from voting or deport them. And that fear isn't unfounded. Back in December, the Trump administration started setting quotas to strip citizenship from up to 200 recently naturalized Americans per month for things like minor crimes in their home countries before they became otherwise law-abiding citizens. To put that in context, in Trump's entire first term, only 102 people were denaturalized, and now they want to double that every month. And the DOJ's head of civil rights, Harmeet Dillon, who also believes 2020 was stolen, went on a far-right show this week and said she found dozens and dozens of illegitimate votes in the data that she's been reviewing from the states that did give over their data. Let's do the math on this. The maximum dozens can be, before you'd say over 100, is 96. So 96 votes across 680 million votes cast in the last 5 national elections. That's 14 millionths of a percent is what she found. In any normal context, we call that number 0. Let's move on to the bill. The Save America Act. Mandatory voter ID everywhere, proof of citizenship to register. Sounds reasonable on the surface, except laws requiring proof of citizenship to register already exist, and the real-world effect of strict voter ID laws isn't catching fraud because the fraud isn't there to catch. What these laws actually do is stop eligible voters from casting ballots. Disproportionately, that's college kids, women, people of color, and lower-income Americans. The bill has been stuck in the Senate for weeks, and Trump has now made it his number one legislative priority and added provisions banning trans women from sports and gender-affirming care for minors to this voting bill. He's hoping that senators who vote against it will face backlash on those issues, instead forcing them to vote for a bill they don't want to vote for in an election year. Now, Senate Majority Leader John Thune said Monday, "We don't have the votes. That is just a function of math." Trump's response? He's refusing to sign anything until this passes, which means DHS stays shut down. A major new housing bill that passed the Senate today, one of Trump's own campaign promises, will go unsigned if it makes it through the House. His new DHS secretary nomination will stall. He's basically holding his own agenda hostage. Here's what I want to leave you with. I know all of this can feel like Trump is closing in on controlling elections. He's not. Elections are run by states. The Constitution gives them that power explicitly. A national election is really just tens of thousands of smaller elections run by people who take their jobs seriously and do them well. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be concerned. Be concerned. But for every bit of concern, know this: American elections are secure. And if you want proof, go volunteer. Train to become a poll worker. Get trained to count ballots. See it for yourself. And honestly, with all the mistrust floating around right now, they could probably use your help. All right, That is it for today. If this video helped you make any sense, hit subscribe, leave a comment below, share it with somebody who needs a little bit of context in their lives. Links to the Substack are also below. The latest piece is all about the Shield of the Americas, the White House's brand new Western Hemisphere task force, and why all of our partners are human rights abusers. It is wild. I'm Grant Hermes. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.